Hey everybody, how's it going? Bear NPC here, ready for my stream. I normally stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 9 p.m. until midnight. And for the most part tonight, I just felt like chatting with you guys, kind of stream of consciousness stuff, talking about LARP drama. There's always been a lot of it. There always will be. So my whole goal with this is kind of to get some of the LARP drama that I've interacted with and had to deal with for the last number of years since I started LARPing. Yeah, it's been, what, almost 20 years now? Just kind of get it out in the open and kind of how it influences what I'm doing now. Let me turn my microphone down. For some reason, I'm like yelling into it. But how it's influencing what I'm writing now and kind of goals and everything that is going on with the new game. So I'm gonna kind of start at the beginning and work my way through to the current stuff. But I guess I need to start off with a couple disclaimers. One, I'm not going to use any particular game name or anybody involved. I'm not going to use any of their names in particular. I don't want to be involved in any libel or slander or anything like that. Not cool. While all of these things have been influences and have been, kind of important to how I view LARPing and gaming in general, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. And these are all things that I've kind of learned from all these interactions. And not only that, I've had my share of faults in regards to some of these things. So I'm going to bring that stuff up too. I'm not too ashamed to admit, I've made poor decisions in my day. And, that influences how things go. So, yeah, just throwing that out there. I'm not going to use any particular group's names or person's name. The only disclaimer I ever use is when I take credit for a good burn. Fair enough, Gil. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so yeah, first and foremost, let's get into how I started LARP and kind of the drama that started already there at the beginning. So I started, I'm going to say, I think it was like 2000, late 2000, early 2001. I got taken to a local affiliate of the national game that I was affiliated with for quite a long time. There were two rival chapters holding events the exact same weekend. I went to there was the game that I would eventually come to own, and then there was their quote-unquote rival game. And myself and the person that took me to the game needed the ride to the game. We went to the rival game, and it was a long event. And with the national-based game, there were 50 or so chapters throughout the U.S. and Canada, and I think there was eventually a South African chapter. And whenever they originally came up with the concept for the game, they had regions, and chapters could not overlap regions. And then later on, as money kind of got tight, they started overlapping regions, and it got more and more competitive. There were lots of ways the games were competitive with each other. It wasn't necessarily just advertising or player base or anything like that. They would book events over top of each other and whatnot. And so whenever I first started off playing, I could already tell that there was some competition. And most of that stemmed from wanting to run the game their own particular way. And so basically, whenever I start looking at drama in LARP, it breaks into 4 different components, and I think we can equate pretty much all of the drama into one of these 4 things. There's ego, relationships, communication, and power. Some of these are influenced on multiple things, but I think those are the 4 main aspects that really drive drama in the LARP scene. So starting off, there were a number of chapters, and the competition between the chapters caused a lot of drama. Sometimes you would be looked down upon if you played at a particular game versus another game. And basically, the play style was different between different chapters. So you would come to expect different things. And it just really had a negative feel in general. So whenever I originally started, I ended up playing at the game that I would eventually purchase after that single game, because I didn't like that first group's style. Played at the second group, liked their game style a lot better. It felt a lot more open-ended, a lot less friendship gamey. And friendship gaming we've talked about previously on the stream. But it's basically whenever a plot staff directs all the story to friends or groups that are big groups and don't really disseminate the information out to all the players. So that first game I played, I really didn't have any understanding of what really was going on. And it's difficult your first couple games to understand what is going on, unless you have a history in gaming, whether it's D&D or lots of video games and things of that nature. So the first owner of the chapter that I was involved with heavily, he basically sold the chapter to a pair of owners, and there were a lot of issues with these owners. They were what many considered power gamers. They took their player characters and made them into big bad guys for the game itself. The big bad guy was kind of a joke. He would show up every game, kind of scare people. We'd beat him up, get a magic item, and then he'd go away until the next game. And it kind of became a joke for a long while. But there were times where they didn't take the game necessarily seriously, and whether it was running it or taking part in it and whatnot. I remember one time in particular, there was a hockey game they really wanted to watch, so they rented an additional cabin and set up a TV and watched the game instead of, running their chapter game. So it was really, really annoying. And we ended up, after a number of years, buying the game off of them. And every time the game changed hands, you would see a lot more players drop out, lose interest, and whatnot. And lots of that was due to expectation. And I think expectation is a huge thing. And that's basically, communication and power. The people at the top can't convey how they're going to run the game to the players effectively. Or you have older players that come back and expect the game one particular way, and it doesn't pan out that way. So lots of the drama would happen because of the chapter owner switches. The other major drama that happened was basically the difference between the chapters, and that's a lot based off of the national game system. Whenever you have a LARP that has multiple chapters and multiple rules, you have to kind of think of it like a franchise. So you have Burger King. You can sell all the standard, fare that Burger King has, but you can't really make any direct changes to it. Well, people local to Pittsburgh would know that there was a Burger King franchise that was on the south side that decided they were going to do things their own way, and they quit using all of the Burger King branded wrappers and straws and all that kind of stuff and did things their own way. And eventually that caused issues. Whenever you don't have an owner of a national-based game that is on the pulse of what is going on with their game, you run into problems like this a lot. So what ended up happening each separate chapter of the game would break the rules in particular ways to kind of promote their game. Let's say one chapter would put out extra magic items that they technically shouldn't have been allowed to. Or they put out more consumables, such as potions or scrolls or currency, so like money or components in this particular game. Components were used to fuel like high-powered magic. Basically, the different games and different chapters would increase their amount of treasure that they would put out, so that more people got things, and that was an incentive to go and play their game versus another game. Other chapters put out non-standard items that didn't follow the game rules, and they were local chapter only. So if you got one of these items, you were kind of forced to go back to that local chapter to use said items. All that kind of came to a boiling point whenever the national base game decided to change a lot of the rules. They started to go for a different style of game. They wanted it to be very, very inclusive, and they wanted to take all of the game skills that were hidden behind race or lineage and make them available to all characters, so you could buy whatever you wanted. I personally had a big problem with this. And in addition, they allowed characters that were permanently dead to come back to life, or to basically come back to the game. Now, the game was run for a number of years with the thought process that permanent death was a thing. And to change it so drastically, sometimes players that were... how can I put it? Some of the players that caused drama left the game whenever their characters permanently died. I'm not going to say that they were necessarily run out, though I'm sure some were. But whenever their characters permanently died, they didn't want to make a new character. They didn't want to start from low level, so they quit playing. And that's a story thing too. You know, if somebody infringed on the character's honor or things of that nature, and the opposing player went and killed their character because of that, I think it's rightfully so. You know, it's story-based concepts. And mind you, this is coming from a very game-oriented LARP. This is not a story-based or an acting-based focused LARP. This is more of a combat / game. So I do want to preface that. And this was before the time where players would sit around and discuss out of game how they wanted their characters to act, or how they wanted a specific scene to look. That's a fairly new thing, at least here in the US. In some European LARPs, I'm sure that it's a rather common thing, but in the game type system of LARP, it was kind of not seen as a thing, and we can see why, because player death is a huge fueling for drama. Because if you invest a lot of time and energy into your costuming and things of that nature, and your character dies, what's the incentive to keep playing? So, yeah, we had a lot of these problems between chapters, and it was fueled by a national change, and that in of itself caused more drama. Then we get into relationship stuff. Sometimes people would quit running games, and they would come on to different game staff so that they can continue doing what they were previously doing. And not everybody is necessarily honest in what their ownership is of certain aspects of games. And I had to deal with that on multiple occasions. Somebody would tell me that they owned the intellectual property for one particular region or idea or thing of that nature, and they would offer to bring it to our game, and we tried to interact with them and let them run that story, and then they would proceed to do things that were not necessarily conveyed to us whenever we were the owners of the game, make drastic changes. So that all comes down to communication, power dynamics, and in certain aspects, relationships, because we had a couple that they were divorced, and it caused some serious drama in our game towards the end of its run. First, the wife wanted to come in and help run things, and then the husband later on came in and wanted to help run things and join the chapter and whatnot. So it all is very, very drastic and can cause a ton of drama. Then looking at some of the games that I've tried since the national game, the first game that I really got into was another national game. It was based more around an apocalyptic type aspect, but they were running into safety issues, which runs into trust in your plot team and things of that nature. And not only that, they didn't seem to be very knowledgeable about their own rule book. And then the most recent games that I've played, it seems like they've made a drastic change from the original concept of the LARP, which seemed more game-based, and they're switching to more of a story-based LARP. But most of their drama seems to be basically around relationship dynamics, problems with the owner, and some unsavory things that have occurred. And then the thing that has happened most recently, there's a halfling party game that has been making the rounds on Facebook. There's been some drama in regards to that. I can't tell which side is particularly right or particularly wrong. It's not really my place to say. It's kind of damning on both ends of the spectrum. Sorry about that. Baby Bear is in the other room. He must not be happy with something. But it's one of those things that we've only heard part of one side of a story. So I don't want to assume the worst of either. All I can tell is that perception is reality. And whenever basically what happened, there was a schism between the owner of the content for the game and the person that was attempting to run said game. There was a disconnect, and they decided to part ways, and the person that was going to run the game said that they were going to write their own story and run the game themselves, which I think is perfectly acceptable. The problem is that there is no way to present yourself as if you're not going to be in some way be copying some of that previous work. And it's just the perception. I don't see any way for the perception to be good in regards to any of this for either party. It just makes for a very, very difficult situation. So let's go into like those four aspects. Ego. Whenever you have ego at a game, whenever somebody thinks, oh, I've been running games for 10, 15, 20 years, I know what I'm doing, you're basically closing yourself off from constructive criticism. I know personally I did that with a national-based game, but partially that was because the national-based game had its own rule set that I had no control over. I was just a franchisee. I could follow the rules or not follow the rules, but my contract stated that I had to follow their particular rules. So I didn't feel like I should break that kind of thought process. But whenever you have that ego, you're unapproachable. You can't make changes very easily, and it just makes a very difficult way for people to interact with you. You look like that high and mighty king on a hill that won't listen to anything and can't see the problems that are brewing around their feet. Whenever you get into relationships, there's all kinds of things that can happen. I think the big thing is whenever you are building your LARP group, first and foremost, you have to have one person at the top. If you have a couple people running the game or things of that nature, you kind of need to have that the buck stops here person. If you don't, and it's kind of by committee, then you'll always have people teaming up with other people, and it just breeds animosity. I kind of like the thought process. You have to have that one person at the top that Gil. You have to have that one person on the top of the chain that the buck stops here. This is the decision, and good or bad, that's the person you blame. That's not to say that they shouldn't listen to other people. That's not to say that there shouldn't be some kinds of checks and balances. But I think it's a huge thing that it minimizes the problems you have with relationship dynamics. So a big thing is, one of the last games I played, there were discussions about wrongdoing by the owner of the game with their significant other. Your own personal morality should have some kind of impact on the community that you're running. So you need to be perceived as a good person in some way, shape, or form. Not necessarily good in the... How else can I put it? You have to be trustworthy. And if you have any major issues with your character, that's going to come out to the group, and then that's going to cause additional problems. I mean, it's all difficult for sure. But there have been just major issues with people that have lots of skeletons in their closet trying to run these games. And part of that is that, LARPs are driven towards people that like theater and drama and things like that. So people are naturally going to gravitate in that kind of direction. Communication is huge. You need to have a checks and balances system set up with everything that you do. I think that's part of the big issue whenever you come to LARPs where you do have one person at the top. There needs to be that balance between them listening to the community and them making decisions. So, for example, with the new LARP that I am writing, everything is kind of going to be voted on by the player base, but there are going to be additions that I make as the owner of the game that don't necessarily have their say-so. For example, if I want to add a new monster group for the game itself, I might come up with costuming for 3 different groups and bring those 3 to the player base and say, hey, I'm considering adding a new monster group for next season. Which of these 3 would you like to see in the game? Which would you like to interact with and fight against and things of that nature. That means I still have directive control, but I'm letting the player base decide key points that are involved in the actual LARP itself, so they feel involved. So it's very inclusive. I really like that thought process. It is a lot better than just that one person up on high making all of the decisions. But at a certain point, at the very beginning, especially of a LARP, you need that person driving the concept forward. Finally, the power dynamic. That's a huge thing. Friendship gaming is a huge obstacle. Groups overpowering other players is a huge obstacle. It all adds up, and it all can have a dramatic negative effect for your player base. So you have to be very clear on your guidelines. You have to be very clear to the player base what your vision is, what the game's vision is, where they're going, how you run your game, how you run your LARP, everything. You need to spell it out, and you need to be abundantly clear, and you can't just pivot super quickly the way I've been seeing certain games pivot. It's been huge. It's been a real problem, because you expect one thing, and then your player base, if you make a sudden change, your player base, you can throw them completely out of line. Maybe somebody's trying to, convince other people to show up at your game, and you make a pivot such as that it's just going to sabotage you completely. I think all of these things kind of were why this halfling party issue that is currently going on Facebook is there. We have ego between the two, between the writer of the concept / story and the person trying to run the game. One, it is their intellectual property. It is their baby, so they want to take ownership of it. But the other person is the person actually running the thing, so they need to feel invested. So they're naturally going to butt heads a little bit. You hope that they're going to be kind of somewhat aligned, and definitely should have a contract in place setting parameters and setting guidelines. I think that would have been a huge boon to this issue. Their relationship itself, it doesn't sound like there was good communication back and forth between these people in particular. I know one of the people involved in this. Their online skills, the way that they talk online is very harsh, very blunt, and IP. we'll get to that. But this person is particularly blunt and kind of rough around the edges whenever it comes to online discussions. So it already made things a problem. So Gil was saying IP is a shaky concept in this case. Absolutely. The whole concept, now I don't want to read into the rules of it. Basically, it's a hobbit party. It's a big celebration, and you have all the different families interacting. Apparently, there's like color. Each group has different colorations that they wear and things like that. Hold on one moment. Gil says, like one person having a certain way of drinking Coke being upset about how another person drinks it. Yeah, that's kind of it. You could have hundreds of different rule sets for how to handle a hobbit party. I think there are a couple problems with this whole interaction. One is the branding. This hobbit party was particularly branded like two other events that previously already occurred, so it seemed like they were all being run the same exact way. Two, there was no contract between the two parties. that would have automatically set how these, how everything would have ran. 3, because there was no contract made, but all of the resources were given over to the other person, it would be shady for the event runner to continue to use it, but you can't. It's difficult for them to say that they're going to run it with their own rule set, but not be influenced what they've already seen of the previous rule set. So it just, all in all, I think the best look for the people would have been, hey, we are canceling this event. There were issues between ourselves and the people that wrote the story, and we're going to write our own rule set, but we want to make sure that it is as dissimilar from theirs as we possibly can, and we don't want to rush that. You also don't want to necessarily work off of the... you don't want it to look like you are running a story that is in line with this other group and then change it last minute. But yeah, intellectual property in this case is really, really shaky because Hobbit, the name, is owned by the Tolkien estate. The name of this event was Halfling something. And Halfling, I believe Wizards of the Coast or TSR tried to copyright that as their own thing. That's basically their own version of hobbits. But it's a term that has been used in literature previously. So nobody really owns the concept. It's based off of a bunch of different ideas. Basically, it's the whole thought process of somebody that acts kind of childish, not fully like a full-grown man, but that kind of in-between phase is what halflings were kind of meant to be acting like. And it's that love of life and that not necessarily scared of anything, but not the bitterness of old age kind of feel. But then all the art is very, very reminiscent of the Tolkien estate and things of that nature, and the whole thought process. It's very, very difficult. I could go out and write a bunch of different rule sets that might be involved with like a Hobbit party, and they could be vastly different from each other. But it's just hard to say that they're not going to be influenced off of one another. Very similar, I will readily admit. The LARP that I am writing is very, very much based on the LARPs that I've played and the systems I've seen and things of that nature. So certain aspects of it are going to be very reminiscent of the national game that I previously played. They're going to be very reminiscent of the other games that I have seen recently and kind of have changed my thought process. But you have to look at it on the whole. Nothing we create now is going to be in a vacuum. It's not going to be 100% different. We're always making variations off of other things we love. Matt Colville says it all the time. Take what you love and put it in your game. You have to change it up a little bit, but that's something that we've always done. And I think I've hit a good dynamic with the new LARP, but we'll see. I mean, I'm sure that I will get a bunch of different thought processes from different players and whatnot. But yeah, it's kind of where I'm at with all of this stuff. Anybody have any opinions or other thoughts? Gil, how about you? This is just kind of the thought process I wanted to get out into the world with everything else going on. Kind of just wanted to ramble a bit about it. You know for a fact that we've all kind of run into our own drama throughout the years as LARP has been involved. And like I said at the very beginning of this, I am not free of judgment from any of it. There are times where you think you have a great idea, or you think that you are right and somebody else is wrong, and there's a differing of opinion. You have to kind of roll with it. Pardon me on that. You kind of have to roll with it, and sometimes you are the bad guy and you don't think you are, and other times, sorry, it was a little too carbonated. Sometimes you are the bad guy and you don't think you are, and other times you're the good guy and you think you might be the bad guy, and it's all complicated. Nobody's ever 100% right, and sometimes things can get thrown up in your face and you don't really expect it. Gil, you're right. F ton of trolls. F ton of trolls, sir. But yeah. So that's just kind of the rant I wanted to go on. I don't really have anything else in particular, so might jump into some Halo for a bit. Gil, are you feeling like playing, or are you playing your Minecraft? Gil told me that Minecraft has gotten a little bit more difficult with the new patch, so... Sorry, I had to, buddy. Whenever you act like all of your ideas are correct and you're the best ever. I know you didn't actually mean that, by the way. So, but yeah. So far with the LARP stuff, I'm kind of on hiatus with it for a little bit. Some of my, pardon me. Oh, all good, man. Just turned a boat into a house. Nice. Good times. I forget where I was going. Oh, yeah. So the LARP stuff is currently on a little bit of a hiatus. I am very stressed out at work, so I've been doing a lot of stuff for the real world. I normally have all my family over our place for Christmas. And then after Christmas, I have a couple days off where I'm planning on finishing up all the odds and ends and getting the playtest documentation out to people that are interested in looking at it. And I'm hoping to playtest 2 or 3 games over the course of 2022 and actually get into the actual game in 2023. Maybe earlier than that, but it all depends on how the players like it and if it seems fairly balanced. So the whole thought process is the rule book is going to be very rules light. It's going to be about 60 pages. But then all of the typical fluff that you find in like a D&D book or old LARP books, all the story-based stuff, are all going to be contained in videos on YouTube. So I'm working on basically my YouTube setup. So hold on one second. So currently I have my streaming computer here, and I have my Sony A5100 that I use for my stream cam as well as for recording videos. But I got a Sony A6300, which I'm starting to play around with. Going to work on getting some B-roll, as well as a few different lenses for getting some B-roll footage and really starting to work on my actual YouTube stuff. For the most part, most of the rules stuff are done. I am just putting the finishing touches on it. I have all of the skill costs down. I have the starting cost down. I have how you gain your skill points and your hit points and everything like that. So all that stuff is set. Concept of the world stuff is very, very simple. I can explain that to people in basically a night. But for the most part, yeah, that's where we're at. I have the game name. I have the game logo, which I've been using at the beginning of my streams every time. I actually have 5 different colorations of it, and I'm thinking of using that kind of as a basis for threat level for the event. Some people don't like the very dangerous kind of events, so some people might want to stay away. But I want to kind of I want people to understand what we're going for. So I'm definitely I have a bunch of documentation. I need to strike that middle ground of having enough documents that people don't mind reading through them once and then retaining that information. And not so much that people look at it and are daunted by it. Some people just have policies for everything that you don't need to have. You want to have enough policies to keep people safe and hold the group accountable and understand what you're getting into. But you don't want to have something so over documented that there's no wiggle room and no understanding and things of that nature. It's very difficult to do. So yeah, I'm hoping that everything goes fairly well in regards to that. But overall, I think everything is going fairly smooth. If anybody else has any questions or anything they want to discuss, feel free, go ahead and put it in the chat. But I think I'm going to get into a bit of Halo. What I'll probably do, I don't know if I can do it right now. I did put it in the description of it. So I will go ahead and switch over. Let's go to gameplay screen and make sure that everything's going okay. But yeah, if anybody else wants to talk about any LARP drama or anything like that, feel free, go ahead and jump in the chat and we can talk it out. But that, for the most part, was everything that I wanted to kind of get at. Let's deactivate and reactivate the Elgato. Yeah, I was playing some Dicey Dungeons earlier. It's a pretty fun game. Definitely worthwhile. Worth checking out. Especially if you have Game Pass. Gonna go ahead and cut the side music here. There we go. But yeah, if anybody has anything else they want to talk about in regards to LARP stuff or any of the LARP drama or how the new LARP is going, feel free and jump on in. Gil, I did look at that that item. I do think we need to make some slight modifications to it, particularly like the languages and whatnot. But overall, I think it fits well. I was just a little busy at the time to be discussing it in actively. Let's see. Hydra and PvP, assault rifle, mangler. Okay, so all the rifles. Got it. Let's go ahead and multiplayer. We'll do ranked. let's get rolling. Yeah, overall, for the new game, basically my way of trying to handle drama is make sure that I have everything in my policies readily available so people can see them before showing up at games, so you don't have any disconnect on how things are going. Minimizing my own life stuff from the LARP stuff. I don't have any issues that I really need to explain to anybody. I'm not a creeper or anything like that, so that helps a ton. Okay, Gil says, well, the language part of it stated that if it didn't know 6 language, it basically... Okay. I thought I saw Giant on there or something else, so... Giant just didn't seem to make much sense to me.
Over there, hostiles inside.
Okay, one down. Dang it.
Enemy team score.
Spike grenades acquired.
Targets are over there.
Okay. Let's go for A. Pikachu voice is 65.
Your team
What a name.
scoring.
The enemies captured Charlie.
Enemy team scoring. Your team scoring.
Woo! We captured the zone! This was a terrible idea! Stronghold Alpha lost. The enemy has captured
And they
Bravo.
took B
Enemy
already.
team scoring.
Stronghold Alpha is ours.
Your team scoring.
Stronghold Charlie lost.
Ah, I gotcha.
They're under us. Targets are over there.
Oh, I wanted the back attack.
And one spanker inbound.
Dang it.
Got way too many of us.
But yeah, so
Enemy shields down.
so I don't have any real world stuff that I really have to worry about. I don't have any
This zone
I'm gonna
dies.
keep the
Stronghold Bravo lost. The enemy has captured Alpha.
Enemy team scoring.
keep the different policies set to kind of minimize the drama on that. And then having the players do votes to add things and change things that they want to see in the game gives them a sense of ownership in the game. And they're more likely to stay invested in it. So that's my overall plan on combating drama.
Scoring.
I also need to make it abundantly clear that large groups that try to scare away other people won't be tolerated,
The enemy has captured Bravo.
and how I will counteract that. So
Stronghold Charlie is ours.
I need to be abundantly clear about it.
Get cover!
They're running Charlie.
Stronghold Charlie, lost. We've captured Alpha. M41 Spanker inbound.
Dang it. He moves sideways. That's how a crab walks.
Enemy team scoring. Taking damage.
Stronghold Alpha lost.
Taking fire.
Yeah, at least I killed him from the grave. We are not doing well, though. Dang it.
Stronghold Alpha is ours. The enemy's captured Charlie. Stronghold Bravo is ours.
Oh. Good. Thank you. That made up for it. Not really.
Stronghold Alpha lost. We've captured Bravo. Stronghold Charlie lost. M41 Spanker inbound. M41 Spanker available.
Your team scoring.
Stronghold Bravo lost.
Enemy team score.
Stronghold Alpha lost.
Your team scoring.
The enemy's captured Charlie.
Enemy team score. Enemy halfway to victory. Your team scoring.
The enemy has captured Bravo. Stronghold Bravo is ours. Stronghold Alpha lost.
Got stuck. That's the poop.
Stronghold Charlie lost.
Enemy team scoring.
We're gonna lose. We're gonna lose. Yeah. Should use the assault rifle. Yeah. Yeah. It was bad.
M41 Spanker inbound. M41 Spanker available.
Yep, got me.
Your team scoring.
Got me. Darn you, Pikachu!
The enemy has captured Alpha. We've captured Charlie.
Dang it! I'm not a fan of
Enemy
strongholds
team scoring.
most of the time anyway.
The enemy's captured Charlie.
Your team scoring.
We've captured Bravo. Stronghold Alpha lost. The enemy has captured Bravo.
Enemy team scoring.
Okay. It's okay.
We've captured Bravo.
Your team scoring.
Stronghold Charlie lost. M41 Spanker inbound. M41 Spanker available. Friendly reminder, rocket jumping is physically impossible.
Wow.
Plasma grenades obtained. The enemy has captured Alpha. Stronghold Charlie lost.
Enemy team scoring.
Ammo reserves depleting. We captured Alpha.
Your team scoring.
Oh, man.
Bulldog. Sounds good.
Oh, you're gonna get in close now, aren't you?
Yep.
Stronghold Bravo lost.
Enemy team scoring. Your team scoring.
Woo! We captured the zone! This was a terrible idea! Stronghold Alpha lost. The enemy's captured Charlie.
Enemy team scoring.
The enemy has captured Bravo. M41 Spanker inbound. Stronghold Charlie is ours. Stronghold Alpha lost. M41 Spanker available.
Your team scoring.
Plasma successful!
Nice.
The enemy has captured Bravo.
Switch faster.
The enemy has captured Alpha.
Enemy team scoring.
Nice.
Stronghold Bravo lost.
Enemy team nearing victory.
Another one down.
Woo! We captured the zone! This was a terrible idea! Stronghold Charlie lost.
Dang it. Missed the melee.
Your team scoring.
M41 Spanker inbound. The enemy has captured Bravo.
Enemy team scoring.
M41 Spanker available.
Your team scoring.
Zone's ours. What now? Stronghold Bravo is ours. We've captured Alpha. Stronghold Bravo lost.
Enemy team scoring.
The enemy has captured Alpha.
Your team scoring.
The enemy's captured Charlie.
Enemy team scoring.
M41 Spanker inbound.
Your team scoring.
M41 Spanker available.
Ooh.
The enemy has captured Bravo. Stronghold Charlie is ours.
Victory.
Okay. Well, guys, I'm going to cut the stream there. That's the end of my LARP talk and stuff, so I'm gonna probably play some Halo off stream. Anybody wants to play, feel free. Go ahead and message me. But thanks very much for coming and hanging out. I will talk to you guys later. Have a great night.